Want to welcome you back to our December meeting of the Community Recovery Advisory Group. And today's meeting is going to be a planning meeting of sorts, looking back to where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go in 2021 as the vaccine comes online. But I'd like to go ahead and formally transition to your chair, Elijah Wheeler.
Thanks, Adriana. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you here this evening. Glad that you're able to attend our last official Community Recovery Advisory Group meeting of the year 2020. It's been a long ride thus far. Looking forward to some really exciting things in the year 2021. I'm glad that you all have been so dedicated to join us multiple times this year to continue to push this important work forward. I hope that you all saw the last email that you received from Adriana a couple of weeks back. In that email, there was a newsletter from the county. There was the results of the brainstorming session that we had with Michael Baskin during the course of our last meeting, as well as the most recent recovery report for you all to be able to read and kind of get up to date, with the work that's currently going on here in the county. So once again, there were a lot of exciting things that are taking place. Last meeting was really exciting as well. We hope to top it this evening with an even more exciting meeting around some of the next steps and how we really want you all to be involved in guiding the county's recovery situation through the course of this pandemic. So with all that said, I'm going to now hand off to Dr. Earl Stoddard. Earl?
It looks like Earl's computer decided to reboot, and so he's attempting to join us at the moment, but it may take him a couple of minutes.
So we've got, we don't want dead air time, as it's referred to in radio. So I'm looking around the screen. Obviously, not everyone is able to attend this evening. There are some who are in the midst of celebrating Hanukkah, as the holiday season has already started and gotten underway. Next week, obviously, we'll be progressing into Christmas and Kwanzaa holidays as well, too. So lots of good stuff going on. So I'll go ahead and give this PSA that I typically give at the end of the meetings, but I'll give it to you now as Earl is joining. There's going to be lots of eggnog and cookies and all that kind of stuff. So make sure that you drink as much eggnog as possible, eat as many cookies that you originally left out for Santa Claus, but you're sneaking and eating for yourself to trick the kids and all that kind of stuff. And even if your kids are grown and out of the house, you can still put some cookies out and pretend that they're there for Santa Claus and eat them yourself. That's what I do. So make sure to enjoy some extra treats this Christmas as well, too. And there he is. There's Earl. He's rebooted and ready now. I'm handing off to you, Dr. Stoddard.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Computer updates come when they wish to, apparently. Thank you all for being here once again. I'm sure we'll have a very engaging conversation once again. Couple things I want to talk about, both in terms of where we are with COVID-19 and where we are with the vaccine, just briefly. COVID-19, obviously, we've been in the 400 and 500 mark most of the last several weeks. Had a couple days over 600, which is not where we want to be. Hospitalization numbers continue to increase. We obviously that's the most concerning thing for us. At the request of the hospitals, we did provide trailers at each location for short-term storage of decedents should that be necessary. That was a step that we took in the spring, and one that we don't want to get to the point where we have to need those, but it's something we have to do as a contingency. But it just reflects exactly how concerned we are about COVID-19 and what the hospitalization rates are and may become as we move forward. As you are likely all aware, we do have proposed executive order changes that are going before the county council tomorrow. There is actually a late change that we made today based on some of the feedback we'd received, and I'll mention that briefly in the context of the other changes that we are making. So first off, we are closing indoor dining. That is something that consistently, not just in Montgomery County, but across the country and indeed across the world, has been seen as one of those things where, because you cannot consistently wear a face covering, because it is extended duration, because you're generally in close proximity to a lot of people who are not, your household, and generally you're there for, certainly more than 15 minutes, which is seen as one of the, increasing risk points, but, typically there for 45 minutes or an hour. because of all those factors, obviously, it's just impossible to make, in spite of the efforts being made by our restaurants, it's best possible to make those as safe as we would like to see them. In addition, we are limiting youth sports to the 10 and 25 numbers, 10 indoors, 25 outdoors, that we are consistent with for other gatherings. We have heard from our non-public schools more often than not that some of the issues that they are having with keeping COVID out of their schools is linked to club and other youth sporting activities, such that there are actually a few schools in the county that are prohibiting in-person for students who do participate in those sports, particularly the travel variants. We've also consistently had a number of investigations and/or outbreaks tied to youth sports, and we're trying to obviously keep our youth safe, particularly in an effort to continue our conversations with MCPS to get schools back to in person for our public schools as well. The last thing, and this is where the change actually occurs, is we originally limited to 150 persons, large retail establishments. The late change is essentially that we are going to any establishment, rather than just limited automatically, we're going to allow any establishment that has more than 150 customers and employees in their space to submit a letter of approval that will allow them to proceed. What we have found is that there are some large retail chains that are doing a very good job in limiting COVID-19 risk by making major changes to how they operate their businesses. And we do believe that, we should allow those facilities to continue with a bit more flexibility and spacing than facilities that choose not to do that. And so we will allow businesses essentially a week to submit a letter of approval process, letter plan, and we'll consider it and allow them to continue. The last thing I do want to mention is the vaccination program. As you will have seen today, the first doses of vaccine arrived in the state of Maryland. I do not know whether we've put any vaccine into arms in Montgomery County at this point or not, but we certainly, if we haven't today, it'll likely be tomorrow. Obviously the number of doses that we receive will not fully cover our healthcare workers, nor will it cover our vulnerable residents in our congregate living center stations, like our assisted living and long-term care facilities. But, we're making this as a monumental day, and we're looking to continue to make that progress moving forward. The state continues to finalize and consistent with the ACIP recommendations, the federal recommendations, develop exactly what the prioritization groups will be in the state of Maryland. Montgomery County will be consistent with what those state guidelines are. And so we will not have local latitude to decide how we want to choose to implement vaccine priority groups. We've gotten a lot of questions that we cannot answer with regard to how do disability providers fall into this, or how do childcare providers fall into this? What about home care nurses versus hospital nurses? And so all those questions we are looking to answer, we're collecting them all. Dr. Gales does sit on one of the statewide committees that helps this, decide how the state's going to implement the federal guidelines. And so we are going to continue to share with him the questions we are getting from the public, and he'll have a hand in making sure that the state addresses those concerns. And so much more to come. We're working on the staffing and all the other pieces, necessary to implement the measure or to implement the vaccination. But we do have a little bit of a road to go down before we're ready to more broadly disseminate and get into some of those other risk categories. So I will stop there. Thanks again for coming, and look forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Earl. We appreciate that. So obviously, folks, one of the things that we want to do is engage with you around some of the creative ideas and opportunities that you all may come up with to address some of these challenges during this time. So what we want to do is we want to give you a couple of minutes here this evening to actually respond to a poll for you all to identify your top 3 issues that you feel we should be addressing here at the CRAG. And so I want to also make sure that we point out that we understand that vaccinations and food insecurity are 2 of the many challenges that are currently taking place. So we've highlighted those, so you won't see those as an option in this poll here already, being that we've talked about those extensively at this point. but we do have some other items. We want you to take a couple of minutes out here to fill out the poll and to identify for us what the top 3 items or issues are that you would like to focus in on here. So we're going to get this poll up here in a moment. And feel free to identify those issue areas.
That we cannot vote. Host and panelists cannot vote.
You need to turn on the poll for panelists to allow panelists to vote.
All right, 1 second.
Bear with me.
And sorry, I hate to even alter the poll now, but is there any way you could also add an other category? Or are we limited to the ones that you've chosen?
We can add an other. If you just give me 1 second.
While you're doing that, can you explain, Dr. Stoddard, what determinations were used to distribute numbers of vaccines to each state? Because it seemed like Maryland got, when I saw the national chart, it looked like Maryland got much fewer than other states like Virginia. And I just wondered what was the algorithm used for that distribution?
My understanding is it was done per capita, but I do not know whether there were modifications made to compensate for, we have disparate healthcare networks. And so if the first categories were going to healthcare, one might have thought that based on the number of healthcare workers you had. My understanding was per capita, but I haven't checked to see whether that math makes sense or not.
I think it's per capita for the first rounder.
Yes, that was my understanding too.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I see some people are popping some of their other ideas over into the chat. Feel free to do that as well in the meantime too, while we're preparing the poll for you.
I don't see the poll. Is it open now?
No, not yet. We're
Okay.
bringing it back up.
Sorry, everybody. Give me just 1 second. All right, let's try this. My apologies.
No worries. All right, folks, you should have the poll in front of you now and be able to access it. Just take another minute here, folks, to make your selections. All right, I think we can go ahead and look at the results now, Ben, of the poll. We've got housing insecurity, childcare challenges is pretty much neck and neck with stress and mental illness right there. Did anyone not understand what non-child dependent care was? Everyone understood what that was as an option.
I thought it was a little confusing because there was another one that said caring for other adults.
Yeah, I thought they were the same thing.
So we'll add that 4 percentage points in with the 21% and say 25%. How about that? And we have taken note of your other priorities that you've left in the chat room as well too. So we will be focusing in on these top issues here moving forward in 2021 at the upcoming CRAG meetings. Okay, folks. Certainly looking forward to having further engagement with you all from that perspective. We appreciate your feedback and your guidance there. Now we're going to pivot. This evening, we've got Julie Parker joining us from the county.
Could you just, I'm sorry, could you just read off what the percentages were?
Sure. Ben, could you pull that back up?
I'll have to go back and look at the percentages because I already closed the poll.
Thanks.
Housing insecurity was the top. I believe childcare challenges and stress and mental illness were pretty much neck and neck. I want to say childcare challenges were about 67% to about 63% stress and mental illness. Am I correct there, folks?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, we want to pivot now to our guest this evening, Julie Parker from the county, the Public Information Office, and some of the great work that she's been doing to discuss with you all some of the stories that we've been hearing during the course of the pandemic and its impact on people here in the county. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to Julie.
Thank you, Elijah. I will try to compete with that amazing radio voice that he has. I've been very envious ever since I first heard him speak. So I used to be a reporter at Channel 7 in Washington, D.C. So if the name sounds familiar, that might be why. And I want to, like any good reporter would, I took a picture of the polls. So here are your stats real quickly. Housing insecurity, 75%, child care challenges, 67%, stress and mental illness, 63%, personal financial strain, 58%. Then we did the combo platter of the non-child dependent care, caring for other adult family members at 25%, and then other was 33%. And that is the extent of my math. I watched the last CRAG with great interest and really wanted it to get a better understanding of how you all work within the county. And I've been with the county since March 10th. I live in the county. I've been here for 20 something years, but was brought on March 10th and walked into the building in Rockville when we could still do things like walk into buildings. And the first call had come in from CNN. And from that point on, I would say, I don't know, Earl, what would you say? From March 10th through mid-May, it was craziness. And my role then was to help the Office of Public Information manage the mayhem, because while everything eventually very quickly became pandemic related, there were budget things going on at the time. And so there was just a lot to manage. And I came in as an outsider, having worked in other governments before, but being an outsider to Montgomery County government, I learned a lot. And in joining your meeting, what I found was what I have seen throughout my time here in Montgomery County is that there's something about the 1.1 million people who live here who really care and are very invested in the people who live and work around them. And I felt that from watching your last meeting. And something else that I took away was the need to be heard. So you're all participating, you're doing this. I'm not aware that the county is sending any big checks your way. And so you're devoting your time to do this, which is awesome. And we all so greatly appreciate it. And while you're here, you're sharing your input, you're giving ideas, you're going to breakout rooms and exchanging thoughts and information. What my goal is, and I hope that we can all do this together, is to pool all of your big ideas, work that you're doing within your various networks, whether it's your block, it's your church, it's your community group, whatever it is that you're doing, and however it is that you're sharing information here, I want to become a part of that and find out if we can work together to pool the stories that you're hearing within those networks that I just referenced, within your church, even if your church is virtual, within your neighborhood as you're walking around, if you're on Nextdoor and you're capturing something that you feel is an issue that you should bring to this table. And my mission is to work with you to tell your stories using the Montgomery County government platforms, whether it be social media or our connections with the traditional media, to pull what you're hearing and seeing. And I think this example that I'm going to give you will be able to better explain to you what I'm saying via words by using pictures. So if Ben has recovered from the poll, he has set aside a link. And before you hit play, Ben, I'm going to set up this video. We're going to throw to a news story. The good Dr. Gales, who, like Dr. Stoddard, never sleeps, sent an email one day with just a couple of bullet points that, hey, we got some money from the Office of Minority Health, and we put together some supplies. And they have things like thermometers and masks and Band-Aids and gloves and PPE type things. And we are going to distribute these bags to our high impact zip codes in Montgomery County. Wheaton and Silver Spring are coming top of mind. And that was pretty much the extent of the email. And they sent it to a couple people and basically, do with this what you can if you want to do something with it. So probably on another call, I quickly put together a news release based on the nuggets of information. And Travis, Dr. Gales, did include a picture of a bag and then what would be in those kits. And I wrote a news release and we pushed it out through the county's channels. And then this story is a result of that release. And I'll talk to you more about that on the other side. Jonathan's on mute.
So when you share something, you may have to hit a small button in Zoom to be able to share the sound as well. So you might have to unshare yourself and then share it again and then hit the button.
This is why I asked Ben to do this, because you would just be looking at a black screen if I was in charge of this technical component.
These are all lessons learned of online teaching.
We have a teacher with us. I love it.
Please tell me if you can hear this. I'll start playing.
Thousands of PPE and disinfectant kits are being handed out in the hardest hit groups. New at 11 o'clock, ABC 7's Annalisa Gale shows us how those communities are identified and how churches are playing a big role in this.
Because we have quite a few families with COVID right now, and I know they don't have a thermometer.
Deanna Wingire Rayo is the lead pastor for Hughes United Methodist Church. Since the pandemic began, the church has been providing free meals and more to many in need.
Every Tuesday, we feed 550 families.
The church is located in Wheaton, a neighborhood with 64 deaths related to COVID.
Here in the church, we had 2 people that died, seniors.
Other neighborhoods suffering significant losses includes Aspen Hill, Lay Hill, and Colesville. Combined, 227 people have died due to COVID in those areas. The 3 zip codes have mostly Black and brown populations.
But we have a huge, really huge Asian community. We also have lots of Latinos.
To help save lives, Montgomery County will soon distribute 4,000 of these kits from Rayo's church and 2 other sites. The kits will be filled with hand sanitizers, alcohol wipes, gloves, masks, and thermometers.
And a great help for the people, because I know people don't have resources. They ask for hand sanitizers. We don't have that for everybody.
But most importantly, information about where to get tested.
We had been praying for kids like that, seriously, and God responded to our prayer.
She's also praying for additional resources to feed families in need in time for the holidays.
And Christmas approaching, we have more people, and it's a heartbreaking thing.
In Montgomery County, Annalisa Gale, ABC 7 News.
Okay.
So that's an example of what probably took Dr. Gale's 30 seconds to fire off in an email, and what that can become. And I think all of you within your various networks, I hope in watching that you started thinking about, oh, last week when I talked to this person, oh, when I was in this meeting, or oh, when I was online presenting at school. Something I hope sparked ideas in your head. And that's what we want to be able to pull from you. That is a huge way where you can help the government tell its story, because you are in so many different parts of the county doing so many different things, and there are only so many people. So if you would jot down my email address, because we do want to hear from you about thoughts that you have. And remember, this just started as an email with a couple of bullet points and a picture of that kit that you saw. And then we'll handle the collating of this information and the storytelling. You don't have to think it through that hard. Just think about, I found this interesting, maybe someone else will. So it's julie.parker@montgomerycountymd.gov, right? Yeah, I think that's our template. I stopped paying attention to the time, because once I get a hold of the microphone, I will do that. Elijah, do you still want to give a couple opportunities for a brief sort of example? So I'll turn it over to you, and then we can just talk through that as a group about any ideas you might have and how we might be able to turn that into something.
Thanks, Julie. So as Julie just spoke to, and Earl, I'm gonna let you jump in here, but if anyone has any ideas around possible storylines that they can share that we can then discuss, as Julie just spoke to, that would be good. Earl, let me let you go with it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's important to understand that we're not looking for stories just for the sake of writing stories. I think one of the big things that we found is when you tell your story, that encourages other people to get more engaged. And so when we're thinking about some of the efforts that you all have undertaken, we know that like the response to this event could not and is not county government driven. It is largely driven by you all in the public and your nonprofits and other things. As you know, I see Marco, having visited the Up County hub, I know how much work is going on in the community and being led by the community. And we want to foster more of that, particularly as we move into the new year. Things are going to continue to be challenging for all of us, and we want to try and bring more people in. As I was told when I made the visit to the Up County, is that so many people don't realize how much some of their neighbors are suffering, and how much work is being done to help everyone. by the community itself. And I think telling some of these stories is an important part of not patting ourselves on the back, but engendering more support and more volunteerism and more donations for continuing the efforts that we know are so important.
And you're looking for not just government-driven efforts, but nonprofits, individuals.
I would prefer many of them to be nonprofit. I mean, you don't have to have any affiliation with the county government at all for us to, you know, we know that the county government cannot, you know, I know the common joke is I'm here from government to help, and we know that that's not the way the world works.
Thanks, Earl. So does anyone have any, Laura, you wrote quickly and now I'm looking at you. Does anyone have any ideas that they want to share? Laura, do you want to share that idea?
Sure. So many PTAs are stepping up for their communities. I'm not sure if people realize how much they're doing. And Gillian Hubner she's a woman of action. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she started a high school hub at Einstein. She got them to give up a couple classrooms. She's storing desks there, and she just put a Amazon, wish list and got over 50 coats in a day, that kind of thing, because they really are sometimes the center of a community. So anyway, I don't know if there's some we can do that, but publicize it, but also coordinate, because I feel like there's all these silos.
So there's coordination, but to follow up on what Laura said, and we've talked a bit about some of the silos here. So I live in East Silver Spring, and the Tacoma Park Middle School has sort of coordinated a huge food distribution that's been going on since March or April, and they've raised probably about $70,000, where they have been giving out gift cards. They've been coordinating to give out food. And as Melanie just posted, there's so many things. I mean, on our listserv, I see things all the time. I see a neighbor, and Melanie just posted, a neighbor will say, I'm doing a local drop-off at Shepherd's Table of food. Anybody who wants to do it on a Wednesday, come and do it. I mean, I could almost see just a story, or almost maybe a regular weekly story of the individuals and or community groups that are stepping up on a regular basis to fill the needs of the community. Whether it's individual people, whether it's schools, whether it's churches, all of these folks are really stepping up.
So I think those are excellent examples. And because I think there will be a lot, I did not think that we would have this meeting. There would be a shortage of ideas, which is awesome. When you send the email, please make sure you include, if you happen to have been to these places, you might have photos or videos, or can very easily get one or a few from a text. That will help me see what this could be. The visuals can actually be a huge game changer. And I think that was one of the reasons why Dr. Gale's email was so helpful, because I could picture what this would look like on air. And so the same concept. So please do that for me. And I also brought a prop because I am so impressed with the work that you've done, and I am here to be your cheerleader. I promised Elijah I would come through with the pom-pom. So thank you guys so much for all that you've done for the county. And I will be back in future CRAGs. I actually want to change the name to make it sound prettier than CRAG, but I want to be back, and I want to hear your stories and help share them with you all. So thank you for letting me have some time tonight, and I appreciate all of you.
Thanks, Julie. I'm not going to take it to the next level and ask for you to actually do a cheer.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Pom-pom. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. That's great. Were there any other thoughts or ideas that folks want to share? I appreciate your point, Laura, around the silos that are created. And a lot of times what we do know is that knowledge helps to lead to collaboration and a reduction of duplication of work, right? So it's important to make sure that we're knowledgeable about some of these things that are taking place, especially for people who want to help, but just don't quite know how to help or where to help them. Elizabeth, did you want to share something?
I was just going to say that isolation has been a concern that our group has talked about, especially seniors who are frail and can't get out. And we happen to have a really robust neighbors assisting neighbors in my particular area. And I'm sure that's pretty common in the Craig group, that we have all kinds of examples of how people are doing really nice little things, like whether it's a Thanksgiving dinner or, we're doing virtual caroling and things like that to try to bring a little bit of festivity to people who are totally isolated in their homes.
The virtual caroling is an awesome idea because it's perfect for, in these crazy times. A virtual Zoom where people are singing is different. This kind of video, if you look at your screen right now, this is what's all over news, especially local news, but singing is different. And it also works well for radio. So I love that.
And they may actually be going in person, but singing outside, socially distant. So I'll look into that and share it with you.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate it. I see a lot of good ideas bubbling up in the chat as well, too. Anything else anyone wants to share for consideration?
I just wanted to add that really quickly, if the whole GoFundMe thing that came out about Silver Spring being the most generous city in the country, I think all of the examples that we're seeing in the chat kind of lend credence to that. And I wonder if there's something to kind of do around, again, neighbors helping neighbors, generosity, things like that.
Definitely really important. There is still a lot of good in the world, in spite of a lot of things that we see. It's good to see people stepping up and creating and supporting community, right? Thank you for that, Bridget. Anything else? No? And obviously we will be once again taking note of everything that you all have placed in the chat as we move forward for consideration and some of the work we'll be doing in the new year. We may be on record as having this as our shortest meeting of them all. Once again, considering the fact that it's the holiday season and a lot of folks are engrossed in that. Accordingly, we knew that the meeting this evening probably would not run the typical 2 hours that it has in the past. Melanie?
Yeah, I just had one follow-up from our last awesome meeting, which was I had been working on a sort of a social toolkit, and I'm going to update it based off of what I expect will happen tomorrow with the county council. But look for that sometime, and maybe Elijah, should I just send it to you and then you'll just could distribute it to everyone?
Yeah, you can send it to myself and Adriana if you want to send it to both of us.
Okay. Yeah, so that just know that that's coming, and it's basically just like a, basic messaging around what we've been talking about, and please share this out through your organizations and share it with through your personal channels and your personal networks.
You want to speak to what you were alluding to around county council tomorrow, Melanie, so people know?
Oh, sure. I just, I expect that the restrictions will be upped without knowing for sure, of course, but I just think that the restrictions are going to be increased tomorrow based off the latest numbers.
Earl, anything you want to add to that about the restrictions? I know you spoke to it a little bit earlier, but just any clarity?
Yeah, I mean, having heard from most of the council members, I think they understand the moment we are in. I talked to council members Friedson, Navarro, and Albornoz today. And so I, generally know where they are. I mean, they're not in any way excited or enthusiastic about having to do more restrictions, but they understand, we all have personal stories, but I've had to send 2 messages of condolence this week alone. And I'm sure everyone has similar personal stories that we're all going through. people that we're working with or on behalf of are working or having. So, you know, I think, you know, it's just, you know, the enormity of the situation that we're facing. And, you know, while the vaccine is absolutely every reason to be hopeful, but obviously we're trying to make sure that as many people make it to receive the vaccine as we possibly can. And that's sort of a big area of focus right now. We are, you know, continue to be hopeful that Congress will come to some sort of general resolution. I mean, separate from the issue of local and state funding, there are a number of joint packages aimed at helping these businesses that are being so adversely affected, which again translates directly into hopefully helping employees, one would hope. You know, we got a review of the proposed bipartisan bill. I know that there are some issues that need to be worked out for that to be passed, but there are a lot of good provisions in there, totally separate from the local and state funding, that would help a lot of our residents and businesses. There's food security dollars, there's child care subsidies, there's business assistance, there's just a lot of good measures in there. And so we're continuing to apply pressure sort of to hopefully get that over the finish line.
Thank you, Earl. Anyone else have anything they want to share this evening before we come to a close? I'm scanning.
I do want to probably one follow up to our last conversation, and I know you all had expressed, you know, if we make changes based on your feedback, you want to have follow up on that. So we're going to start doing that moving forward. So as we have conversations, you all make decisions. So for example, based on the feedback we received tonight, we'll be prepared to come back and talk about how we're incorporating your rankings into some of the things that we are doing. This is a partnership, right? This will be a two-way street. So we're going to be wanting to hear from you all about how you've, reached out in the community and gotten some good stories to tell about. This isn't about the county looking good. This isn't about even us individually doing what we do looking good. This is all about furtherance of the goals that we've all set for the county and how we can then help our residents out. So it'll be a two-way conversation. We're committed to giving you all more feedback about what you've said has influenced what we do, because I feel like that will give you, make you feel like your opinions are being valued. But at the same time, we're going to be asking you all for examples of how you've further disseminated some of the messages that we've all agreed on, or some of the concepts that we've agreed on. So that will be something we're going to do moving forward. Probably at the beginning of every meeting, we're going to have 10 minutes of us saying what we've done to incorporate your thoughts, and be looking for 10 minutes back on what you all have done since our last meeting to sort of further our community goals. So
thank you, Earl. It's important to have this constant communication line open back and forth, especially as we start talking about vaccinations and some of the messaging around that. We know that there's a ton of hesitancy within specific communities. So certainly we want to make sure that the correct information is out there, that people are equipped with that, so they're making the right decisions right during this time. It's really key. Anyone else?
Before we close out, I want to ask you to save the date for our next meeting. It will be taking place on Wednesday, January 13th from 7 to 9.
In the year 2021, isn't that an exciting thing, right? Thank goodness. I don't think most of us wanted to get older outside of the year we turned 16 to get a driver's license, or maybe 21 to drink, right? But since those times, I've never so much looked forward to a new year in the way that I do right now in this moment. I'm sure you all feel the same way in many ways. There's a quote I want to make sure that I leave you all with this evening by the famous British poet Alfred Lord Tennyson that I really like this time of year, which is, "Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering it will be happier." And indeed, folks, it will be happier. I can promise you that. We have to have that belief and that hope that 2021 will bring us great joy.
And totally unrelated topic. Tomorrow night, we are having a community conversation around the county's climate resilience plan. Adrian, you want to talk about that as well? I know, I'll just say, I said this on Twitter today, COVID-19 is a substantial threat to our community. It is absolutely no more of a threat than climate change is. And we're we're very committed to addressing that threat as well. So, Adriana.
Yeah, thank you, Earl, for the plug. Yes, I'm very excited that earlier today, County Executive Elbridge released the county's draft climate action plan, which is our plan to get to zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, and also reduce climate-related risks in the county. So the draft is out for public review. We welcome your feedback. If you go to the county's homepage, you can find it there. That's the very first scrolling banner. You can find a link to the plan. And as Earl mentioned, tomorrow night, the county executive is holding a virtual roundtable with the community to begin the conversation around the draft climate action plan. So hope to see many of you there.
Good stuff. And everyone, we appreciate you. You could be plenty of places this year, especially during the course of this pandemic, but you chose to be here with us through these meetings for the past however many months. It's been a long time. I feel like we've gotten to know each other very well at this point and stuff. So we appreciate that continued determination that you have and dedication as well, too, as we head into the next year. Once again, the next meeting will be January 13th, I believe, a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. So stay tuned for an invite there. And once again, in the year 2021, goodbye 2020. Happy to see you go. Looking forward to 2021. But most importantly, everyone, be well. Be safe this holiday season. Continue to mask up, social distance, and do all the right things that we know that you're doing in this moment. And take care of yourself so that we can see your smiling faces come January 13th. Okay, folks? All right. Happy holidays, everyone. Take care.
Happy holidays. Thanks for doing this.
Yep. Happy holidays, everyone.